Welcome to Navigating Cancer Together. My name is Talaya Dindi. I'm a cancer thriver, cancer doula, independent patient advocate, and owner of On the Other Side. I use my experience to help others get on the other side of cancer. Gaps between the guidance, emotional support, and education that are needed and what one receives can be huge. This podcast fills those gaps by sharing stories, resources, and information about all things related to cancer and wellness. I interview guests from all walks of life who are living with cancer, caregivers, and those who are thriving on the other side. Also, I talk with organizations, healthcare professionals, and experts in the health and wellness spaces who offer complementary and integrative care. Join me. We are in this together. Hello, everyone. This is Talaya Dindi from On the Other Side Life, and you're listening to Navigating Cancer Together, the show that has something for everyone facing cancer. Why? Because everyone is different with different needs, beliefs, and perspectives. Thank you for joining us for this episode. I encourage you to open your minds and your hearts. Today, our very special guest is Patricia Young. Patricia currently resides in Washington State. She lives on a farm with her husband, horses, goats, and dogs. She has her MS in psychology and is currently studying under Melissa Pierce, the founder of the Equine Gestalt Coaching Method, with a goal of offering trauma-informed healing experiences along with her equine partners at her facility. Patricia has named her first equine partner Diana in memory of her mother, Melvia Diane, who battled CNS lymphoma, who unfortunately passed on December 14th, 2023. For more information about Patricia's program, it can be found on her link tree, which is Patricia Young Gestalt. Patricia, thank you so much for joining us today and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure, Patricia. How are you feeling today?
I'm really honored to be here to have an opportunity to speak with you. I really am, truly.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate you, Patricia, coming on the show. Unfortunately, your mother passed away not too long ago, so my condolences to you.
Thank you so much. Yes, it'll be 3 months yesterday, and it's still very fresh, but I also feel like I know she would want me to be here to speak with you so that other families going through the same thing can feel supported and benefit from our conversation.
I'm honored to have you here, Patricia, and thank you so much. Before we dive into the discussion about cancer and caregiving, tell the audience about more of who you are. Tell us about your studies of the Equine Gestalt Coaching Method and why you are studying this field.
I'm originally from Pennsylvania. I have 2 sisters and 1 brother. I come from a really large, close-knit family. After I graduated from high school, I received a Rotary Scholarship and studied overseas in Spain. My first career was as an interpreter and translator and cultural liaison, helping people mostly in medical situations. And I worked with a lot of refugees and displaced persons. I have always had an affinity for animals, which is one of the reasons why we ended up here in the Pacific Northwest. My husband and I really enjoy the outdoors, and we have lots of animals here at the farm. In the past, we've done animal rescue, and we still do it to some degree. I got involved in the Equine Gestalt Coaching Method through a dear friend of mine who's no longer with us. Her name is Lisa, and she was just an amazing and inspirational person in my life. She pursued this method and then became a coach herself. And like I said, it was like you had mentioned, it was developed by Melissa Pierce. She developed the method, and she is a core founder since 1989 of the horse-human healing movement. It's experiential in nature. So what that means is people actually have an experience with a horse as an active partner, and they work with a coach as a client alongside of a horse to have a healing experience. And it's a non-diagnostic approach. So you don't actually have a diagnostic. You get to come out, you get to have a healing experience. in our case at our facility, and it's trauma-informed work. So we really learn about trauma-informed approach, and we do a lot of positive coaching, and there's a lot of somatic awareness, and we walk alongside people, and we help them to just examine their life and the choices made focus on designing a positive future.
Wow, that sounds wonderful. Thank you for the work you're doing, Patricia. There's so much trauma going on in the world. People, adults are still dealing with childhood trauma or they haven't dealt with it at all. It's very important. It really helps people move on with a better quality of life.
Yeah, it's really an honor. And honestly, I'm truly grateful to Melissa for having founded the program, what she created, and the environment that she has created for us all, the people that are in the program now and the people that have graduated. It's an atmosphere like nothing else I have ever experienced in my life, and I'm truly honored to be a part of it.
Wonderful. Let's transition now, Patricia, to talking about central nervous system lymphoma, which is a very rare form of cancer. Please tell the audience what it is.
Yeah, I actually had to look it up so I make sure I did it right. So, according to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, central nervous system lymphoma is a rare form of non-Hodgkin lymphoma in which the malignant cancer cells come from the lymph tissue and they form in the brain and or spinal cord. And it's either primary CNS or they spread from other parts of the body to the brain and or the spinal cord, and they consider that secondary CNS. In my mother's case, it was primary CNS, and it was in the left side of her brain.
Patricia, please share with us how that was learning that your mother had CNS. How did that impact you as your mother's child? How did that impact you when you learned that she had CNS lymphoma?
To say it was shocking would be an understatement. It really came out of the blue. My mother had always been, and she had some pre-existing conditions as you get when you get older, because she was 79 when she got diagnosed. It was right after her 79th birthday. You know, one day she was celebrating her 79th birthday, and then by the end of the week, she was in the emergency room being told that she had CNS cancer. There was really nothing that we saw, nothing that we really noticed. It was that sudden. I live on the West Coast, so I always get the calls. And my husband and I were getting ready to go to dinner with friends. And, I was walking around laughing, joking, talking to him, excited. And I got into the shower to get ready. And then my life was one way. I always tell him it feels like walking through a sliding door. I had one part of my life before I got into the shower. And it was almost like when I got out that sliding door, my life totally flipped to something different, in an instant. And it was not the same after.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I know that it's tough. Those words really change your life. And it's really important for people to understand who have not, experienced cancer or been impacted by cancer to realize that it's not just the person who gets the diagnosis, it's also their loved ones who have their lives turned upside down. And I think, Patricia, you explained it so well, going through a sliding glass door. That's very accurate. You were your mother's caregiver along with your siblings. What was your role, Patricia, as your mother's caregiver? Because caregiver can mean a lot of different things.
For me and our family, I'm very fortunate. And I know this from conversations I've had with a lot of friends and colleagues. Like I said before, we have a real close-knit family. And we always joke about how when push comes to shove, even with our differences, we put them aside and we lay down for one another. And we just always have. And in this particular situation was even more true. We all came to the table, including my father, with different strengths and different weaknesses. And we capitalized on them. I have a sister who is a nurse. And, she's now part-time, which was great. So she did a lot of those kinds of things, taking care of, making sure she was on top of meds. I have a sister who's really strong with numbers and finance and spreadsheets and very organized, and she leaned into that part of her strength. My brother, he's always really good at just showing up and checking on my mom, especially when she was in the hospital in the evenings when he got off of work, because by that time, my dad and I would be at home and I'd be taking care of my dad. For me, I had the most flexible schedule. I'm in school. I'm not working right now. My husband, bless him, he just looked at me and said, we know what's going to be happening. We don't know when, we don't know how. You don't need, I don't want you wasting time. Go home.
Mm.
And my father can't see to drive. And we knew that this was going to require a lot of going to appointments, going to, infusions. My mom had inpatient chemotherapy. She used to be the driver for everything. So that was going to change a lot. One of my sisters and my brother both work full time. Like I said, my other sister, part time. I didn't want them to burn out. So I went and moved in. And then we had, family meetings to try to figure out who would do what when and to try to help each other. And also not leave it all to my dad, and respect my mom's wishes for what she wanted for her journey, because it was her journey. How much privacy she wanted, who she wanted to do what, when. Did she want outsiders or no? Because it's a very vulnerable, intimate journey. And we wanted to respect that for her as much as we possibly could. And my father and her had been together for 63 years, and they'd really never been apart. So when she was inpatient, that meant, taking him to the hospital every day because it mattered to him and it mattered to her. And so, those kinds of things, aside from running errands and just anything the two of them needed, because they had always been there for us. And so it mattered to us as their children to give that back to them.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Patricia. What do you believe were some of the strengths that you possess that helped you to show up and step into the role of being a caregiver?
I think in my particular situation, as a kid, I was diagnosed with epilepsy. And so my mom was always there caring for me with a brain illness. So I had insight that the rest of the family didn't have. And even though a lot of my life I had been frustrated with that, it was almost like in that moment, my life had prepared me to be able to be there for my mother in a unique way and to serve and honor everything she had ever given me in that moment. And while I couldn't change or control her diagnosis, I could certainly honor her by sharing with her everything I could about what I had learned throughout the course of my life out of love for her. And I think that was a strength for me in that moment.
Absolutely. I love that. The other thing I really admire, Patricia, because I know it can be hard for some families, is that you all honored your mother's journey and what she wanted. I think that's so important. So great job to you and your family for putting what you wanted for your mother aside and saying, hey, this is what's important to her. I think that's something really important for people to really hear and to acknowledge that it's not a time to force what you want onto the person who's going through that. It's really a time to stand up and honor what it is that they want. I know it probably meant the world to your mother.
It did. Yeah. And it's not always easy. I'm not going to tell people, I'm not going to pretend like it was. And there were days that were easier. There were days that were harder than others, but we all also, I think, learned to talk to each other. We gave each other permission to cry in front of each other, to talk, a lot of things that even surprised all of us. And there was a lot of just things that we, to the best of our ability, even on our worst days, I think we we tried to help each other along as best as we could in a really, truly untenable situation.
Let's talk about the role reversals. As you stated, your mother was really your advocate when you were growing up, facing your health challenges. How did you make that transition? And was it hard for you going from the role of a daughter to an advocate and a caregiver?
I have to laugh because I think back to all the times where my tiny little 5 foot something mom fired doctors and was fearless and, didn't care what anybody thought of her if they hurt her baby girl. And everybody always calls me her mini me because I sound like her, I act like her, even to everyone's dismay. And I take that as a giant compliment, especially now. And in some respects, it was really easy because I am a lot like her. So being her advocate and just reflecting back to her what she really truly deserved in the moment she needed us most came very naturally. And even though she hated it because she had always been a very independent person and just hated to have to lean on others and ask for help, it was not just my honor. I know that my siblings even had said, Mom, you've racked up a lot of credit. You've been there for all of us over and over and over again. We think you're good for it. And, on one hand, that part was easy, but also on the other hand, it was really hard seeing the heart of the family, the strength of the family. The person you love so much, who's always been there for you, that you can't help it, you can't fix it, you can't change it, but you just have to be there for it and in it with her. That part of it was really hard, and also hard to watch my dad because we couldn't fix or change anything for him. We had to help him as best we could. And that was hard as well because, that was the love of his life, his best friend, his partner, his true love, his only love. And I think that part was hard as well.
Speaking of your dad, Patricia, how is he doing today? And what kind of support systems does he have in place? Because that's a long time, 63 years. That's a blessing. That's someone that you just come to know,
Yeah.
like your right hand.
Yeah.
And so, how is he doing today?
I asked him if I was allowed to answer this question, and he said,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
And then I said, well, I want you to tell me, because really this is your information and yours to answer. And he said, without family and friends who are family, he would have nothing. And that's his support system. And then, in addition to that, both my mother and him are strong people of faith. So he leans into his faith very much. And even now, since he does need help getting to and from his home church, he has friends from church who come get him and bring him to and from church. And he has a daily Bible study of his own that he does. He has a special reader because he can't see very well that he uses. And he even texts me the daily Bible verse. And it's our daily check-in. He sends it to me, and then it's our way of saying, are you good? Yeah, I'm good. He'll send me the verse, and then I'll say, I love you, Daddy. I'm okay too. I think when I asked him how he's doing, he'll say, well, some days are good, some days I cry, but that's okay. And, that's about as honest as I think you can get.
Yeah. Thank you to your father. Please let him know that I said thank you for sharing that because it's important for other spouses and other people who have lost loved ones to hear that. I so appreciate your father for being willing to share that. And thank you for asking him. Let's transition, Patricia, to some positive things that came out of you stepping in as a caregiver for your mother. What are some things that listeners would really appreciate that you experienced on a positive front?
When I think about my mom and the positive stuff, she fought until she knew she didn't want to anymore. And we honored that. We went in as a family. We did a family meeting with palliative care, and we really allowed her to talk and make the decisions she wanted to make early about hospice. And then in that moment, from that point on, spent a lot of time at home healing. That's what she wanted to do. She wanted to heal soon enough because we have such a large family. She wanted to enjoy her grandkids, her great grandkids, all of us. She wanted to make as many memories healthy while she could. And that's what we did. We spent as much time as we could laughing, crying, cooking, eating, going over pictures. And I mean old pictures, things that I didn't even know my mom had. And her telling us, I mean, I saw pictures of her when she was baptized as a little girl at a church that doesn't even exist anymore, and just getting the dates down and writing timelines of things. And she even had said to me, Patricia, we can't change what's going to happen, but I'm not going to let cancer take my humor. I'm not going to let cancer take my faith. I'm not going to let cancer take this time that we all have together. There are things that we can control, so that's what we're going to do, and she was constantly wanting to make sure if she was able to still do things for loved ones, if it was in her power. She was this person who always did cards for the little ones and put stickers that were themes on the back. Like if a kid loved dogs, she'd buy dog stickers and she'd have stories on the back and stickers. Like she even knew, like the last set of Christmas cards she did ahead of time before she passed with all their stickers and just fun things. Like she had her favorite drink. It kept running out where we lived because they were running out of an ingredient. My dad actually wrote the company
Oh, wow.
to find out when he could pick it up and how he could find it because he told them what was happening to my mom. So just things like that. We did a legacy video, which I think is something important for people to, if they, even though it might be hard, get pictures, get things on video. We did like a 15, 20-minute legacy video on her best day where I asked her questions. And this is she was worried about the grandkids and great grandkids not being able to know things and remember things. So we did a video where I asked her questions, her story, and we got like a 20-minute video. And we laughed and cried through the whole thing. And I said, if you don't want to answer anything, that's fine, but let's get this now. And we did, and now we have it. And, this will be something that everybody can go back to whenever they want to. And I think that was something really that, it'll be good for everybody. Maybe not everybody's ready to look at it now, but we have it.
That's beautiful. Yes, those are all positives. And I must say, your mother is a very wise woman saying, hey, focus on what you can control and laugh and have fun. I really love that. Thank you. Patricia, what is one thing that you wish you had done differently for yourself?
Oh, yeah. you know, I have cared for and loved far too many people that have had cancer than I care to think about. But there's something about it being your mom that is so different, especially in this capacity. And also living in a home where you're caring for, I think, not just your mom, but also keeping an eye on your dad and just seeing the intensity between them. I wish I would have gotten some support for myself sooner, like not just sort of push things down and hidden in the guest room.
Yeah.
I think even if it was like just virtual, I mean, sometimes it was, I mean, I couldn't leave because if I was needed, it wasn't realistic to leave because things, my dad couldn't see to drive. So if there was an emergency, I had to be there, and even though there was backup with my siblings and things, if things became emergent, I really did have to be on site. But even if like somebody from, hospice was available to come to the house, just trying to think outside the box of ways to like just have some kind of support for myself so I wasn't so drained that, because I know I feel it now. Like I feel the aftermath of waiting And I wish I had not waited. I wish I would have gotten just some help for myself sooner, like not put that off. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Hindsight is 2020. You don't know what you don't know. From what my mom has shared with me, being my caregiver, she kind of said, you really don't worry about things like that.
yeah,
You just step in and do what you need to do. You don't really think about yourself. And so I understand that, like, you're in the moment, you want to be a service, you want to make sure things are taken care of, and you're doing the best you can do at that time.
yeah, that's very true. That's very, very true. And by the end of the day, a lot of times I was just like, it was all I could do to call my husband back here because it was 3 hours different. And by that time, plus school. And then by then I was done. I would go to sleep. And, it was like anything extra was just sort of, it was not going to happen. But you do, like you said, you do the best you can in the moment. And so, but that's kind of, if there was a possibility for just something like that, that was the only thing thinking back that, well, I wish I could have done
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I understand that. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
I know it's tough. We're all going to have to leave this place one day. How did you prepare for your mother's passing?
Yeah, I thought about this question a lot. And I think we did like practical things. And we also had conversations like, you know, my mom got to a point where she was just really blunt about stuff. She was like, well, we know this is going to happen, so we better say all the things we want to say now. And she wrote letters to everybody. She wrote a letter to me. I know she wrote a letter to my siblings. She started preparing things that were important to her. Once she moved past, and I think she was always somewhat afraid, but once she moved past, like, this is not going to happen, and she got to the point where she wanted to make sure what she wanted done was going to happen, practical things, how she wanted it to happen, what her journey was going to be, in what capacity, and then just helping support her in that so it would be carried out the way she wanted to a T. We did that for her. But the reality is that no one can fully prepare for losing someone like a mother.
Yeah.
No, you just do not know how you will feel or what it truly means until it's a part of your daily existence. And I talk to her every day now, whether I cry or I laugh, or because she wasn't just my mom, she was my best friend. And I could pick her up the phone and call her, whether it was in a crisis or just for something dumb, every day. And I was lucky because not everybody has that. And so now to have that like empty space is very weird. I told my husband, once we have the program here up and running and we have our workshops where people come out for their weekly group workshops, we're going to put a phone on a tree. So if they want to pick up a phone and call a lost loved one,
Oh,
and
yeah.
just talk to them like I do my mom, they can go to the tree and pick up the phone and just stand there until they're done, because I feel that in my soul. And I know what that's like very deeply. And to be able to give that space to somebody, I think will have a lot of meaning. I think that that will be something really special to do.
I agree. When you said it, like, I felt it in my heart, my soul too. And I immediately thought about the people I would want to talk to. So, yes, that is wonderful. Please do that. I think that will bring so much joy and even peace
Yeah.
to a lot of people. That's wonderful. Let's talk about, before we start to wrap up, purpose. What does purpose mean to you? And how has your purpose evolved over time?
I wrote this down. I may have to read a little bit of it.
Please.
So
Yeah.
I've been thinking about it a lot, especially lately. And there's this amazing woman, Anita Morjani, who had a near-death experience. I quoted it because I didn't want to do it wrong. And she says, moving beyond fear and stepping into a space of love and infinite possibilities allows us to love ourselves. And as a result, our purpose will unfold organically. We do not have to have it all figured out at once. And then she talks a little bit about surrounding yourself with people who will support you just as you are. And without question, for me, that's the people in my program, Melissa, my loved ones. You know, we call our colleagues herd mates, a touch by a horse. I know I have a purpose. I also know I do not have to have it all figured out today, especially after such a tremendous loss. I'm okay with that. I think the biggest thing is that I know if I love myself unconditionally, like my mom did, because she championed me, even on days when I wasn't very likable. She loved me deeply and unconditionally, and she would want me to do that. I will get there. You know, I will be living in my purpose fully and completely, and truly being able to not just serve myself, but live a life of purpose, serving others to its highest. And that's truly what I want to do.
Well said. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
As we wrap up our conversation, Patricia, what are the key takeaways that you'd like for the listeners to remember from our discussion today?
I think for your loved one, the one who has the diagnosis, as hard as it may be in the moment, because I know firsthand how scary it is, truly listen to them. It's their journey, and time is of the essence. Time is of the essence. So, like, they're the star, and we're supporting cast.
Wow. Yeah.
You know, and it's painful and it's hard, and there are things that you will see and may have to do that are not easy. But time really does matter. You know, everyone handles the diagnosis, the process, and even the loss of the loved one differently. So I would just say extend yourself, extend those who are all a part of the circle, a lot of space, a lot of grace, and a lot of love and flexibility as much as you can. Because it's just really, really, you know, it's a unique situation. And that's something I really learned, because we all go through it differently, whether it's the person living with the diagnosis or those who are a part of the team. I guess finally, for yourself, just speak words of kindness to yourself and grace over and over and over again, because you need to hear them, and do it however long it takes.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Patricia. And I just want to let you know how much I appreciate you. I know this may not have been the easiest thing to do so soon, but I'm grateful that you felt like now was the time. And I want to thank you for sharing your mother, your father, your family, and even yourself with all of us, the listeners. And I just wish you more healing. And I just wish you all the wonderful things life has to offer. You truly deserve it.
Thank you for having me. It truly has been an honor to be here with you today.
Thank you. That means a lot to me, Patricia. And is there anything else before we wrap up that you would like to share that you have not had an opportunity to share?
I honestly don't believe so, except for I just wanted to thank you again for having me. I really appreciate you and all you do as an advocate in serving others, both patients and their families, and just the cancer community as a whole. So thanks again.
You're so welcome, and it's my pleasure. I will have Patricia's Linktree information in the listen notes, so that if you want to learn more about Patricia, if you'd like to connect with her, learn more about her work, you will be able to find her. I want to thank you all so much for joining us today. I want to give a shout out to the listeners. Thank you for joining us. Please share, follow, or subscribe so that you can easily find this podcast and listen again. You can listen to Navigating Cancer Together on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. They're everywhere. If you're looking to expand your professional network, please join me on LinkedIn. As an active member of the platform, I would like to personally invite you to connect with me. Let's grow our connections together. Search for Talaya Dendy. That's TALAYADENDY. That is it for this Wednesday. And until next time, let's keep navigating cancer together. Take care. Thanks for listening to this episode of Navigating Cancer Together. I hope you found it helpful. Please be sure to subscribe, share, and tell your friends and family about it. For notes from the show and previous episodes, visit ontheotherside.life and check out the podcast section. I would love it if you join me for the next episode. Talk to you soon.